All right, we're ready to get started. Now, I'm going to try to be conscious of your time with this. That's why I have a stopwatch. I've got 15 chapters I want to cover, and hopefully I can spend a couple of minutes on each one to kind of breeze through this and give you a basic overview of drawings. Now, I've already spent a couple of seconds on this sheet, which is called the cover sheet. Now, the cover sheet has a couple of things that you can just see right off the bat. You've got your title of the project, your address, nice little rendering of it as well. And some other things that you'll notice here is the date of when the drawings were released. And then scrolling down a little bit, you'll see the owner is the Baltimore City Public Schools. And this is the design team, a group of folks that all come together to put together this set of drawings that we're looking at. So not only you have the architects involved, but there's also a landscape architect, structural engineer, mechanical, lighting, engineering, even acoustical engineering, someone that takes care of the sound and that sort of thing. So moving right along, you want to pay special attention to this area right here called the title block. You want to see what the format of that's going to be. So it looks like this title block here is typically going to have your title of the sheet right there, the name of the project, and it looks like the location. And then this little box here with the date and description is where if you had previous drawings, like maybe there was a set of drawings from a previous date, you could put that date and the names of those drawings. This is called the bid set because companies can take this and present a bid with all the information that's in this set of drawings. The previous set may have been something like the design development drawings where they were still trying to figure out what some of the material was going to be. On this left side of the page, we're actually going to get back to that. That is the vicinity map and a bunch of abbreviations, symbols of materials, and drawing key. We're going to come back to that and break those things down, but now I want to move right along because I'm looking at my stopwatch here. I'm already over by 30 seconds. Okay, so now we're scrolling to the table of contents. So just like you would think, each of those folks that we saw on the design team is responsible or has a play into each one of these groups of drawings that you see. So you have your civil set of drawings here, you've got your landscape drawings there, and architectural. And then you get into your food service. You know, in a school, you will have a commercial kitchen in there with commercial food equipment and a plan for the MEP trays that shows them where to bring their connection spots for the equipment. Moving along, you've got the structural drawings, which shows everything related to the foundation as well as whatever type of thing supports the structure, whether it's steel, whether it's concrete. All of those details and plans will be in there. The mechanical, plumbing, and electrical drawings are known as the MEPs. And in there, you also have your fire protection plans, which shows you where your sprinklers are going to go, where light strobes and fire detection equipment is going to go. Then you also have your electrical lighting, which is different than the electrical plan because this actually shows your light fixtures, what types of light fixtures you have, and some more details because some of these places can have some pretty elaborate lights. So there's a whole set of drawings just dedicated to that. And then this last section here is known as the low voltage. That's going to be things in the technology drawings, which would be stuff like an intercom and a clock system, video surveillance, all those sorts of things. Would fall under, some of that would fall under security, and then they also have the photovoltaics, which I think there's some sort of a solar grid system on top of the roof, and so I think those drawings have to do with that. Okay, now we're ready to get into the meat of the drawings. Let's find the overall plan here. All right, so this is the overall plan for the building that we're looking at. The Holabird Academy is a school. So a couple of things I'll direct your attention to first. Is this key plan. This key plan, really quickly, you can break down what the partial plans are going to look like. So the reason for an overall plan and a partial plan, which is a smaller section of that, is so that you can show more details. You can see that this drawing here was drawn at a scale of 1/16 inch equals a foot. Well, with a partial plan, you can blow that up and maybe draw everything at 1/8 of an inch equals a foot. And sometimes you can even take it a bit further with an enlarged plan and have a 1/4 inch equals a foot. But in the overall plan, you can see these lines here. These lines indicate, and they fall in line with these lines to show you the breakpoints of where each area is divided. So as we continue through these plans, we'll start to see this area broken out on one page, this area and that area, and it shows you the prospective names of it right there. Now it also tells you here, and all the drawings don't tell you this, you know, every drawing doesn't have this information, but this tells you the total area of this building, the first floor that is. Lastly, let's look at the general notes before we leave this sheet. In parentheses, it says notes apply to all drawings. So that's why they're called the general notes. And it even tells you general notes applicable to all drawings, items, and conditions detailed, noted or otherwise identified on one of the sections or details are applicable and binding to all other sections and details for identical or similar conditions. All that was basically saying is that if we put something in these notes, it applies as a general note on all the other drawings, unless we tell you otherwise. And if we have to tell you otherwise, there'll be another note that overrides the general note. Now let's pick one out just for an example. All right, look at number 11. It says, unless noted otherwise, walls shall extend to the roof or the floor deck above and be sealed in accordance with the general plan note number 2 on sheet A-1.1 and wall termination details on wall type sheet. So it's referring you to a couple of different sheets on this note, but what it's basically telling you is that any wall in here, unless otherwise noted, is going to extend to the next structural deck. Not the ceiling like in your house where the wall just stops at the ceiling. It's telling you that this is going to extend past the ceiling into the next structural deck. Okay, now we are looking at a partial floor plan. And so we broke that down earlier. We're looking at this section, area A, on these sheets. And so now that it's blown up and it is in that larger scale than the previous one, this is now at 1/8 of an inch. You can see that there is a gym here. This looks like maybe the cafeteria. There's a corridor here that leads to the entrance. So this is actually the entrance of the school here. And if we pay close attention here to the notes, it says entry canopy above. So there's an entry canopy right there, and those dotted lines are showing what's above. It's showing the extension of the canopy. And so you can also see that there's some steel posts shown right there that support the canopy. It looks like the canopy apparently cantilevers, which means that it extends quite a distance outside of where the support is, the vertical support. It extends outside of it. Stays outside of it. That makes it cantilevering. Here's a picture. That's a picture of what it actually looks like, so you can see. But anyway, as you make your way in the building, you have the gym over here. You have some stairs and a locker room area. You have your administrative offices over here. It says principal, flex office spaces over there. Looks like the restrooms are right here. So pay attention to the restroom, the walls surrounding that area. You can tell that they have a different type of pattern on them. And as a matter of fact, as you look, there's a lot of different types of patterns drawn on the wall. And so remember when I said we were going to come back to the cover sheet, this is where we're going to bring that up. Okay, I blew this up so we can talk about it more. So over on this side, you have the symbol of materials, and you can start to see some of the symbols reflected here. Hopefully I zoomed in close enough. Maybe just, if you need to, but along the bathroom walls, you can see, according to this map, that must be solid concrete masonry units. So a lot of protection around the restroom. That's why they typically tell you in a tornado or something like that, get in the restrooms, because this is solid concrete block. Continuing on, let's look at the drawing key. This is going to tell you what your grid lines look like. So here are the grid lines here. Notice that the grid lines that run horizontally are alphabets. J, K, there's a L.6, and the ones that run vertically are numbers. But those are your grid lines. Pay attention to your grid lines, because if you jump around to different drawings and different details, you can always reference the grid lines to make sure you know where you're at and you're looking at the same thing. Let's get familiar with some of these symbols. Okay, so this is an important one that you'll see. This is the section symbol, and you see a lot of those in here. I'll point them out. There's 1, 2, 3. There's a lot of those section symbols, and you can see that there's an arrow with a circle. So we're going to look at one of these sections. This one actually slices across the whole building, and you want to trace it all the way until this tail turns up. So we're going to look at this cross section throughout the whole building. So imagine that you're taking a chainsaw and you're sawing the building in half. That's what we're going to look at. So we're going to be able to see through the building, see all the pretty much like an X-ray. All right. Now what this is indicating is that this is going to take us to a different sheet. Right now we are located at sheet A101. But when we go to that section, it's going to take us to apparently A-4.1. And we want to look at this detail. There's going to be a number of details on this sheet. We want to look at the one that says A18. That's going to tell us what we're looking at on this building section. Again, this is like you're standing on the ground and you're looking this direction with X-ray vision. Let's see what it looks like. Here you go. So we're on sheet A4.1 now. And this is A18. So just like we said, you're looking straight through the building. Also pay attention to the scale. The scale has changed now. 1 inch equals 8 feet on this. So pay close attention to the scale. And just in case you forgot, it's showing us which section of the building you're seeing here. So A18, you see it right there, and it's showing it to you right here. So a couple of things that we're looking at right through the building is this open dining area. We can see this open dining area has a higher ceiling than this area over here, which I believe was like the administrative offices. You can see the ceiling line there. And so when I was talking about the walls earlier, you can see these certain walls run past the ceiling line here, past the ceiling line, and they connect to the next structure. So that's what that note, the general note we were reading, was telling us. So as we go back, we go through along the building, you can see that there are some mechanical equipment above the ceilings here, especially as you get over to this area, I think in the gym or somewhere close to the gym. There's a lot of, looks like some heavy mechanical equipment over here, all above the ceiling. So that's the building section. Now look at this right here. This is called a section axon, which stands for axonometric view. A section axonometric view. So it's a section, but they've turned the angle so that you can see some other things. So I can see right here there's some sort of a window system shown right there, some sort of decorative panels or something. There are tubular skylights. So I wanted to come back to this partial plan, and now from here we're going to look at some elevations. So the elevation symbols are set up around the building at various spots, and you can see that the arrows are showing you which direction you're going to be looking at. So I want to go to this sheet right here, A-2.2.H, and look at the different elevations. That's going to get us familiar with the finishes, the building envelope. Here it is right here. When I say building envelope, everything that needs to be on the building to protect it from rain and to keep it basically dried in. So that may be your bricks, that may be a window, that may be your roof. All that is part of the building envelope. And so there's different materials that you can use, and you can see right here that there are different materials that they have. And this is, the elevations are useful for finding that out. Now, right off the top, you can see that the height, the total height of the building is 32 feet. Looks like it's 32 feet in the air. And even looking at this portion, I believe that this is the roof, and there's a parapet, which a parapet is the section of the roof that goes above. It's pretty much keeps you from falling over the roof. It's like a wall that goes above the roof. Looking at some of these elevations, you can see that 32 feet is actually the top of the brick. The brick stops there, and your second floor is 14 feet and 8 inches above your first floor. So you can see all this material here. Reading these notes also tell you there's a metal panel there. There's different pre-finished aluminum curtain wall system for the windows. We'll talk about the windows toward the end of the video, but there are different brick patterns that is highlighting there. It's showing you that there is a few different colored panels in here, and there's the entry of the building. It also says a special note to include anti-graffiti coating up to 10 feet. Now, elevation drawings, or at least this set, also has an overall elevation that's split into two, showing the partial east elevation and another partial elevation. There's also a key plan here with different pointers set up to let you know what orientation you're looking at. And again, these are specific notes, elevation notes. So read those notes as they apply to the elevation notes. Okay, so I want to zoom into these drawings a little bit more and dive into the next step, which is the enlarge plans. You'll find this lasso here with the little tail on it with a symbol next to it. This is going to take you to an enlarge plan, and in this case, we're looking at the restrooms. So we're now on A-5.5, and we're looking at the enlarged toilet plans. So this is the detail that we were looking for, and as you zoom in, you can see that it shows a lot of different dimensions there. This is really important for ADA, accessibility for people with disabilities. And so you can see that this sheet includes every single restroom in the building. There is a typical notes for the toilet rooms, as well as a fixture mounting criteria, showing the plumbers that would be mounting the fixtures how high off the ground they must have it in order to meet the qualifications of the building code. Now we're going to look at the wall types. There's different types of walls on this project: structural walls, just non-structural walls, walls made up of different types of material. And so we're going to look for the different wall details at this point. So we're going to take a slice through the building and look at this section. We see a section of the gym, and I actually want to look at this wall right here. So we'll go to now this section and look at this detail. So here we have wall sections, and this particular sheet is just for the gym and the community area, but this is showing all the wall details, and it looks like you can blow it up even more to see even more details. But this exterior wall right here is built up of all of this material, and it even spells it out for you. 4-inch block, 1/2 inch airspace, which is actually airspace for things like water to drain and space for attachments that help to hold up other structures. From the outside of this wall all the way to the inside of the gym, it looks like it's maybe even more than a foot. There's an ICF wall here, which I did a video on if you want to watch that to find out some more about insulated concrete forms. Now from here, we can zoom in to see other blow-ups of other details. This is that parapet I was talking about. You can also see foundation details to see the connections there. But I'm going to pull up this one, and detail G11 is the parapet at the gym. And so you can see that the top of masonry stops at 32 feet, but right above that, there's this whole other assembly that's part of the top of the parapet. So while we're talking about walls, we'll stay on walls, and now we're looking at all the different types of walls that are on the project. And they're all listed out here in some sort of a diagram. What you see here along the top, this is the structural deck. Maybe it's the roof, maybe it's the floor above, but it's a structural deck. And it's showing how on some of these types of walls, your wall or whatever it is goes past the deck, or goes past the ceiling line, which is right here, and straight up to the deck. All of these wall types are labeled. These are the wall types for A, and there's different variations even for the wall types based off of, in this case, the size of CMU blocks. As the CMU block gets larger, this is where you get the A-type 1 from the A-type 2 to 3 and all of that. And so there's similarities as you go through each one of these types. And as you can see, there's different makeups. Some is drywall, some is CMU wall. You have the ICF wall, which looks like a pretty thick wall right there. But all of these can be reviewed, and you can see that there's even up to an X type of wall there, which that is normally your firewall. Again, there's typical notes you could read to get familiar with what's all on this sheet. And then also a part of this is your wall termination details. So this shows the structural deck above. In some cases, it shows the steel. And these termination details tell you if this is supposed to be a firewall, like in a stairwell. You should seal any joints with the special fire rated caulking, if that's the case. Again, these are all the nitty-gritty details that the engineers would get into, and the people that are going to build the building. Now we're going to talk about something called the reflected ceiling plans, or the RCPs. And these basically show what types of ceilings are going to be above each one of these floor spaces. We were looking at the floor plan. Now we're looking at the ceiling plan. So there's a lot of patterns here. And if you march right over to this legend here, you can quickly decide which is Egyptian wall, which is acoustical, metal panel ceiling, and all different types. There's even some areas that are marked like this, which are open, which meaning that there is no ceiling. So each one of these symbols may represent a light, may represent a mechanical diffuser, a supply duct, a fire alarm strobe, a motion sensor. Now I will highlight one of the RCP notes that is typical, and it's even in bold it appears. It says typical ceiling height shall be 10 feet unless otherwise indicated on reflected ceiling plans. Toilets to be 8 feet. So that's just telling you that all of these rooms that don't have anything indicating the ceiling height, unlike this room, unlike that room, which tells you the ceiling height. If you don't see anything there, then assume that your ceiling height is going to be 10 feet. Unless you're in a toilet, which is like this men's and women's restroom, then your ceiling height will be 8 feet. Next, we're going to look at the roof plan, and there's a lot of information on here. It gives you a couple of axonometric views of the entry canopy that we were talking about, as well as the overall view of the whole thing. And it even zooms in and gives you an enlarged plan view of this section of the building, which is that solar outdoor lab learning center. And we can use this as an example. Here you can see the slope of the roof. You may be able to see some drains. It may highlight different materials. It tells you that there are 2x2 pedestals. But to break all this material down, you'll just look at the roof types. There's basically a roof type 1, 2.1, and a 2.2. And the assembly that goes into each one are pretty well spelled out here. What we're looking at on this adhered membrane TPO sheet roofing is the cover board, the roof insulation, and the metal deck. So it's showing you all of that right there. So you see there's also a vegetated roof, as well as that walkway pavers is highlighted here. The last thing we want to look at are schedules. There's a few different schedules, but this one is the finished schedule. Finished schedule, if you look at the notes here, basically tell you the types of finishes that you're going to have on your floors, on your ceilings, your walls. For instance, is an area going to have carpet, or is it going to have tile? Is there going to be paint or a type of wall covering? This is where you find all that information out. And so it's basically a table where you can track the room number and the name. And following this chart, you can see the floor material, the base material, and the walls. Now let's take a step back and see what all this means. As we explore the page, the finished material abbreviations are all here. So we can see that BBT is a floor type that stands for bio-based tile. And that is going to have RST base, which is a resilient base. Now, We're looking at the walls, and there's a B, C, and D. You could probably figure out that those mean east, west, south, and north, but which one is which? We're looking at the wall key here, tells you that. Remember, there's going to be a page number in the center, and these will be numbers, and those numbers will follow this pattern. So your north elevation is always going to be A, your west elevation is always going to be whatever's under D, your east is always what's under B, and your south elevation is always what's under C. And all of these abbreviations are highlighted here, so I won't spend that much time. Now, there are typical notes, but there are also remarks. The bottom of the page, there are numbered remarks, and you can pick those out here. Like in this toilet, for instance, number 15, numbered remark means to provide full height ceramic tile on all walls. That's a pretty important note. You wouldn't want to just go up halfway and then realize, oh, we need more material. We should have read that note. A door schedule is similar in the way that it's set up. You can see your door number, match that with the room, and then your nominal heights of the doors, the thickness, the type. And if you're wondering the type, then just look off to the side over here until you get your answer. The door elevations are shown here. So door elevation for F is going to be a solid material versus FG is going to have some sort of opening cut out, maybe with glass. And so you can see those reflected here under the types. The material, things like aluminum, hollow metal. And as you follow this along, you could pretty much figure it out until you get maybe to the sections here where it talks about the jambs, the heads, and the seals. These, J11, H11, and S2, are highlighting different details on a detail page. So as we go on to the next page, here is that detail page. These all reflect the connection details for the door, whether it's the jamb, which are the sides of the door, the head detail, which is the top of the door, or the seal, which is at the bottom. All of those can be looked at and viewed here. Now, these window drawings are set up a little bit different. Don't think individual windows. In this case, this is called a curtain wall system. And a lot of times they come to be built in place. So these sticks here are actually aluminum frames, and each one of these G1s or G5s or G4s is a different glass type. So you can see that G1 is different than G4 in the ways that it says here below. And then you have storefront elevations, which are not as quite as tall, and they're normally just at the ground level. So to close up this video, I just want to flash a couple of photos of the actual Holabird Academy, and I'll link below where I got these drawings from so that you can follow along as well. Maybe I'll put together some sort of a course or class that will get into more details. So let me know if you want that. Thank you for sticking around, and I'll check you guys out on the next video.